Looks to throw. He wants Boyd deep. Help over the top. Boyd adjusts. 1,000 and a score. Wilson drives in. She scores. Jensen, Grayson, give and go. Jensen elevates and she slams it down again. Arlo, top of the box, a drive, and he fires it in. Cannon hammers the back line. Striplings fires it up. Spencer in space. Just got it. Touchdown, Sarah Catholic. Blocks quick out to Martin. Breaks the tackle. Martin cuts far side. There goes Quinton. See you later. One play. Touchdown, Leopards. Quinton Martin for 6 from 36.
It's been a long time, but we are back. The Valley Sports Guys podcast is back here on the MVI Live YouTube channel for episode number 79. Jose Negron, joined by Jeremy Salou, Alex Lyons. Guys, it has been a very long time, but it is good to be back.
It's been a while, but
it has been a while. A lot has changed since then. I believe.
Has it really?
Yeah.
A lot's changed.
Oh, a lot has changed in terms of how we can kind of view this platform. How we can view this product, right?
Yes, yeah. Award-winning.
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 Can you talk a little bit more about that, Jeremy? Because I don't remember where that came from.
I think I can.
I think I can. The Valley Sports Guys podcast was named the best in the state of Pennsylvania when it comes to local sports coverage. Yeah.
By the Keystone Media Awards, which is the Pennsylvania News Media Association. So, what the awards, when we submit our writing awards, I also submitted the podcast. I think we did 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. I think you submit 3 episodes of it, and well, we won.
We did.
I don't know who we beat because I'd be talking smack, but
I think there was a list of who finished second and third, but I can't remember exactly.
Second place is the first loser, though.
I was too excited to be. All right, come on, let's be humble about it.
No, but yes, we are back.
We are award winning.
We are award winning, and we're ready to kick off another season. I mean,
yeah.
If we look a little lighter because the football preview is done. Hits newsstands tomorrow, so make sure you get that. We were just discussing we will do a cover reveal sometime today. Mm-hmm. We'll tweet out like an hour before we do it or something, so if everybody wants to check out the cover. I know a couple people have seen it, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, we'll put it on our Twitter page. We'll put it on Facebook. We'll put it on Instagram. Well, I shouldn't say Twitter. I should say X.
X. That's so stupid.
Our X page.
But we will put it on our socials.
But if you don't update the app, it's still Twitter.
That's true.
That is
I
true.
still have Twitter.
That is true.
I do not.
I can never find Twitter on my phone because I'm looking for the bird and it's not there.
Nope,
it's
just a big X.
But anyway, here we are. Back for another fall season. Soccer, volleyball, football, of course. A lot of stuff going on, and
defending champions looking to make some repeats this year.
In a couple different sports.
Couple sports, and both those teams look better than they did last year. So, I think it's going to be an exciting fall season for the Mon Valley. Top to bottom, I think it's going to be exciting.
We'll get into kind of previewing the high school soccer season here shortly, talk a little bit about high school volleyball as well. But we'll start out with kind of the cream of the crop in terms of, just how big sports are in the fall here in the Mon Valley. And I feel like football is just at another level than any other sport here in the Valley. And not saying that any other sport is less important, but the just Friday nights feel so much different. And a lot of talent here in the Mon Valley in terms of football. And, you've said it first, Alex. defending WPIAL and PIA champions reside here in the Mon Valley in Class 3A, the Bell Vernon area Leopards, who were able to win both titles in the district and in the state, beating Avonworth in the WPIAL championship game, beating Newman Goretti in the state championship. And it really seems like this team is primed to kind of do both of those things again. With the amount of talent they have coming back, it all starts really with, Penn State recruit Quentin Martin and Braden Locks and, that offense. I mean, that tenacious defense as well. But this team really looks like it could kind of replicate the season that it had last year. Starts out with another gauntlet of a 4-game, opening non-conference schedule with Laurel Highlands and Penn Trafford and McKeesport and Thomas Jefferson. But this is a team that could be primed to continue on and win another WPIAL and state championship.
And there's a reason they do that. I talked to Coach Humbert before the EF game last year. I remember vividly having this conversation. He said, this is why we play those games, and they proved it when they got into that game against EF last year in their conference championship game, wiped the floor with them, wiped the floor with the rest of the WPIO in the playoffs, and then a defensive struggle fest where, that defensive line stood tall for the Bell Vernon Leopards to claim that title. And I mean, Bell Vernon, they're going to have the spotlight. They have the big-name recruits. They have the big-time talent. They're the defending champs. But there's a lot of talent and a lot of teams that, are hoping to put their name among the cream of the crop this upcoming fall football season. I mean, and you look at a team that you mentioned on Bell Vernon's schedule. Don't want to get off them maybe too early, but, I think the Jaguars, even though Brody Evans was great last year, led them to a bye in the first round, insert Power 5 recruit at a quarterback this year for the Thomas Jefferson Jaguars. That's not an easy decision to make when you have two talented guys like that.
Yeah, and you look at Thomas Jefferson, Luke Costco comes in after being ineligible last year. He's a junior. You're going to have him, next season as well. Really, I think the thought is, these two quarterbacks are going to battle for the job early on. They're both going to play. I could see that happening. But, I could also see Luke Costco kind of separating himself early. Brody Evans is a big guy. He's a guy that you could line up at plenty of different positions to help your team. He's not just going to help you at quarterback. But this is a Thomas Jefferson team that does have some really good talent. Sean Sullivan is going to be a big playmaker for him. The line's going to be, I think, a little bit different. And obviously we're not going to, give too much away in terms of what these teams have and, coming back and things like that just because – you can read it in tomorrow's, preview section. But Thomas Jefferson is a team that, should be, looked at as one of the top teams in 4A. I mean, they're coming off a semifinal appearance. I mean, tough to say that they're not going to be. But a lot of talent over on TJ's side. And then you got on Bell Vernon's schedule, you got a team like McKeesport that lost a good bit of talent. But, I mean, they're a team that's always very good. And same, with Penn Trafford and Laurel Highlands, obviously losing, a player like Rodney Gallagher is pretty big, Keandre DeShields. But, they should be.
Power 5 recruit Antoine Black.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Bobby Boyd's little brother coming up.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of good talent on both of those sides. And, Bell Vernon's definitely going to have a tough test early on going into conference play.
I think the biggest thing for Bell Vernon is, talking to them during media day and everything, I think that these 4 games are going to go a little bit different than they did last year because I think Bell Vernon kind of just let those ones slip away.
Yeah.
Not taking away from McKeesport for beating them or the 1-point loss to Penn Trafford, who was the defending 5A champion at the time. But I think that I think they're going to go a little bit differently just because I think there's a little bit of a chip on their shoulder knowing that they came into their quote second season that Humbert called it the conference season at 2-2 instead of, where they expected to be. But I think that, you mentioned TJ, it seems like to me reading the preview story that Coach Chirp's, not used to dealing with the fact that their offensive and defensive lines are the question mark right now. So, it's advantageous for them for Costco being there because he could run around a little bit more than Evans can. So, like you said, how that plays out is going to be real interesting. But I don't think TJ's used to the offensive-defensive line. I think they'll be okay once they get into the conference as well. But
that's where they're used to dominating teams.
Right. But McKeesport's still going to be solid because their strength is their offensive-defensive line. It's just they have to plug in, for the triple option, who's going to be where. But, those kids in McKeesport, they usually don't miss a beat because they play that system all the way through middle school. They're coming up to it at the varsity level. And, from what I understand, Anthony Boyd's just as every bit as special of a player as his older brother was. So who's going to get some playing time at Cal U this year? So it's going to be real interesting to see. But, teams are starting to catch up a little bit. I mean, Bell Vernon, as Coach Brian Hansen said at SA, Bell Vernon is the anomaly in their conference. But you got teams like Southmoreland that are a lot better this year. Could Southmoreland kind of compete with EF, who's, in a new system as well for that number 2 spot in that conference? It's going to be real interesting to see.
And that's something I think you got to be, if you're Elizabeth Forward, especially in these early games when you're trying to get your footing. You have, of course, Charlie Melib, the Bucknell recruit, going on both sides of the ball. I mean, but then you have Charlie Niggett. He's a staple of that team. How are you going to be able to limit his touches? Because 40 touches in a game, which isn't out of the realm of possibility for a guy like Charlie Niggett in that offense, how are you going to find a way to limit his touches so by the end of the year he's still able to produce and be effective for you?
He's a guy who, he's going to be a Swiss Army knife offensively for that EF team. He's going to be a guy who's going to get carries. He's going to line up out wide and, be one of the top wide receivers. And he's a guy who's going to be under center as well. Coach John DeMarco already said that, that's the plan for Elizabeth Forward is to use a 2-quarterback system, and Charlie Niggett is part of that. Not the biggest kid, but he plays like a kid who's a lot bigger, and he's shifty, a really good speed, and, he's a guy who's going to make things happen. That's an EF team that, is going to be hungry. They're obviously under a new system, and it's going to be a challenge, but I think there's a big difference between Bell Vernon and then you got EF and then kind of everybody else. Everybody else is going to be kind of battling for those other playoff spots. But, I think EF, even under a new system and with some change, a quarterback and some different positions, I think they're still going to be one of the top teams up there.
Yeah, that's a lot of loss, though. You look, of course, you talk about losing Zion White under center. He's been doing it for years. But Zach Boyd, 1,000-yard receiver last year. He is fantastic. And, of course, Kelly Rush on the other side, the speedster. That's 2 massive pieces offensively on the outside, not counting Zion White as well.
Yeah.
It's been massive. And, last year we saw them struggle a little bit, losing their 2, big running backs with Flournoy and company. And then, of course, now you're losing Johnny DiNapoli coming into this year. And DiNapoli, he was good offensively, but he was one of your best, if not your best, defensive player last year.
Yeah, and sorry, Jared.
I was going to say no.
Jace Brown's going to be coming back. That's going to be a big thing for them. He got a lot of playing time, a good amount of playing time last year, especially in those games where they were, kind of blowing people out and were up big in the fourth quarter. He'll be a factor at running back. Isaiah Turner is a deep threat that, they're going to really rely on. A couple different wide receivers who are coming back from injury as well. So, the weapons are there. It's going to take time, though, I'm sure, that, for them to kind of work through some things. They got Ringgold Friday night at Warriors Stadium, so we'll see how game number 1 under John DeMarco is going to go.
I think the player that I don't think anybody mentioned yet is Chris Climbs is the player for me. I watched he tags us in his highlight videos and stuff, and I watched his highlights from their scrimmage this week, and he was blowing people up.
Mm-hmm.
This kid, he came in last year. I think he was a transfer from Brownsville. Mike Collodi thought he was going to be a special kid, and he's just showing that he is just he's not going to be stopped until they play Bell Vernon in that last week of the year. And that's saying, is Bell Vernon going to stop him? Because he's just eating people up right now. So it's going to be real interesting to see what he, can do this season. I'm excited to see it. And, with him being so disruptive, does that open up things for Charlie on the outside? It's going to be real interesting to see because EF has all the capability of still being a special team.
Yeah.
So it's just, can Ryan Messina, who's taking over at quarterback, and he, kind of step into that role and, minimize mistakes? And then, you have Charlie, like you said, who's going to run all over the place. He's exciting every time he touches the ball. So it's going to be real interesting to see.
And DeMarco said Climbs is a D1 caliber player. So should be interesting to see what he can do for EF this year. you guys want to just let's talk about some maybe some surprise teams maybe this year? Anybody going to surprise you guys?
I don't think it's a surprise, but I think a team getting back to where they're used to playing. I'm excited to see what Clareton does with Mike Wright under center this year.
Yep.
I mean, replacing Capone Jones. They lost to GCC last year. I know we have that on the schedule for later this season, the rematch at Neil C. Brown Stadium. But, I mean, I'm very excited to see what that athletic group of kids can do, because a lot of these kids, like you expect, I mean, you didn't always used to see it, when you had your big name recruits or in your big time Clareton teams. I mean, think of when they had the Lamont Wades, the Aaron Matthews. Those are really the only two kids that played basketball, football.
Right.
Same thing, Tyler Boyd and company. You see this great transition. I think it's a big part of what Rashad Hatton's helped do on the basketball program. He would take his kids during the summer from football camp straight to the MVI SPL during the summer. And I think he's helped build a great sense of commitment and accountability in these athletes that are playing both ways, like your guys like Mike Ruffin, Terrace Wooding, and, of course, Mike Wright. And I'm really excited to see, as a group, obviously they have all the talent in the world, but now adding that almost like an added sense of maturity and responsibility, I really think they can be dangerous once again. And we know how talented those kids coming out of Clareton always are.
Last year was kind of an unusual season, with them not winning their conference championship, a short WPIAL playoff stay. I mean, it was kind of a strange year for the Clareton Bears, and I don't think they're very happy about that.
Not at all. And I think they want to prove that this year again and go out, and I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a surprise. I mean, Jeremy, you got anything in particular?
Not really. I mean, that's why I kind of put it on there. Do we think there will be?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it would be a surprise, but just for Bell Vernon, if they could somehow repeat everything they did last year, I think you have to kind of consider that a surprise just because it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
Do I think they can? Absolutely. Do I think they will? Yeah,
Probably.
But, I think that.
Do they expect to do it? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that is the least surprise in the entire Valley.
Yeah.
If we want to put least surprise.
Right, but I mean, it's still just because of how hard it is to do, how, a little bit lucky you have to be to avoid injuries. And, I talk about that. You'll see the football preview tomorrow. We get into that a little bit. But, yeah, I don't know if there's – I mean, would it be a surprise if maybe Southmoreland jumps EF in that conference? Would it be a surprise?
They have talent.
They have talent. They got a 1,000-yard rusher.
I think it would be a
from
surprise
GCC.
just because of, before Bell Vernon got in there, EF was just owning everything. I mean, it was their conference. So I think it's a surprise, really, if anybody takes over that second spot.
It would be a surprise to me because I do think it's Bell Vernon, EF, and everybody else. But Southmoreland, Manessa native Timmy Bukowski is the head coach there. He's done a great job with what he has there, and he's, his system, back when Clareton was flying around all those years, he was a big part of that as their offensive coordinator. So, it could cause some trouble for other teams in that conference. Bell Vernon and EF can probably match the speed that Southmoreland's going to play with. So it's still going to be interesting to see, though, how that all turns out. Other than that, I'm really interested to see, and we have mentioned on our little agenda here, there's some new coaches in some, pretty prominent spots here in the Valley. Brian Hansen leaves West Green, goes to SA. Tyler Ashbacher from Carmichael's is now at Charleroi. I mean, it's I had another one down. DeMarco, of course, at Elizabeth Ford. It's going to be real interesting to see how those guys and their teams adjust to what they're doing. I know there's some excitement across the river here at Charleroi about what Coach Ashbacher's doing over there. It still might be a little bit of rough season for them over there, but still they're still a pretty young team. They got a young quarterback, young receivers. It's all going to come down to the lines over there.
Yeah, so. And a young coach who seems optimistic and ready for the challenge, which is,
the biggest thing
encouraging.
Is they just need a coach that's going to stay there for more than a season.
Yeah.
3 coaches in 3 years is not a good, recipe for any football program. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
I don't know if it's going to be a surprise, but I really do feel like California and Monessen can both compete for that Tri-County South Championship. Monessen has a lot of guys back. They're a dedicated group, a group that's motivated coming into this season. I can't say enough about the job that Wade Brown has done over there, and what he's been able to do in terms of, really, in a sense, kind of saving that program. I think you can say that. He helped save the Monessen program that was once, so dominant here in the Mon Valley, and he's done a phenomenal job there. The kids are, seem invested into it.
And that's what they needed there. They needed somebody that's going to be there to not only serve as a coach, but be a role model. He comes from the old glory teams at Duquesne, when Duquesne had their high school program. He's done a great job. Obviously, there's the amount of adversity they've had to overcome. Obviously, they lost a teammate over the summer. It's just a lot. What he's doing, I think the Tri-County South comes down to that California-Monessen football game in California in a couple weeks. So
you'll lose a big piece of that Tri-County South in a sense is Mapletown. They're really down this year from everything I'm hearing. And, you never know. Carmichael's not necessarily ever easy, but it looks like, again, it's those two Mon Valley teams vying for that top spot.
And here, Mapletown's down. Do the Commodores get a win next week? Mapletown comes to Perryopolis. Do they get a win?
Well, they got one last year, and and you know what? And Jeremy, me and you are Fraser guys. But here's
really you are.
But no,
I had no idea.
And here's the thing: the biggest issue with this program. You talked about it earlier with what McKeesport does. Yep. They run the same system,
right,
top to bottom. It's relearning everything inside that program. They regress in middle school almost from youth league. Because you're running two plays. You got to get on the same page if you want to win, you want to be successful. There's a reason Mike Stieber was so successful there. There's a reason that team made the WPIL semifinals when they lost to Clareton at EF. They were talented, they were filled with good players, but they were well coached.
Right.
You had the Cox brothers, you had a 1,000-yard rusher in L.A. Ross, but they were well coached and it was a well fundamentally built program. And it's the exact opposite of that now. And they're going to struggle to win this year with that still being the case because you're relearning everything. So instead of being able to just, the system, now let's just put it together how we're going to run it completely, who's going to do what in this system, you have to relearn everything after unlearning everything you were just taught.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Shannon, and, great guy. He's saying all the right things. My issue is he has to build it around that. He has to build a competent, and I'm not saying these guys aren't, but the assistant coaches that he surrounds himself with are a big part of that. The players, he says they're buying in. Last year they lost McManus, who was their starting quarterback. Brennan Stewart didn't come along until, 4 or 5 games into the season. He got the numbers up. That's a first step. But like you said, you have the one team in the youth league hasn't lost in 2 seasons. I know the middle school team, they got some big kids this year. My nephew's, going into 7th grade, and he's back out for football. There has to be consistency from the top down. You have to have people there that know what they're doing. You have to have people there that are committed, that are going to show up. I think that's the biggest thing that's really been hurting that program. And like you said, can they turn it around? You can't. I don't want to say you can't get much worse, but because you had what you had last year. I think he said for the preview story that he only finished with 19 kids last year. This year they're able to practice with an offense and defense on the field. They're up to like 35, 36, 37 kids, which is how much Bell Vernon had at the end of the season last year.
Yeah, I drive by the field every day, and I'm always pleasantly surprised.
I think it's upward trending. He said he has a 5-year plan. This is only year 2. But, you know how it is with coaching nowadays when it comes to school board and politics. It's like, what have you done for me lately? The people at Fraser just have to have patience. Mm-hmm. And, not many school districts around here have that, which is a shame because – that's a lot of the reason we see coaches quitting, officials quitting.
It drives away a lot of really good coaches.
Right.
There's a reason part of what used to be that Stieber staff is now coaching at Hempfield.
I was just going to say that's one of my storylines is what does this California defense look like without Zach Kiefer as the DC now, and they went to Darwin Mangus, who was at South Allegheny last year, Ringgold before that. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that defense – now, the thing is, California has the athletes.
They do.
They have athletes everywhere, especially with this senior class that's there now, led obviously by Jake Lehue.
Absolute monster.
Petrucci and Giletti, they're all still there. So it's going to be real interesting to see. There's so many storylines. We get into them a little bit in the football tab. 60 pages of coverage, a pull-out schedule page of all the team schedules. So, check it out tomorrow. We're real excited about it, as always. So.
And we talked about this is year number 8 that we have produced this product. So a labor of love, as you like to call it, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, a lot of work goes into it, but it's all worth it in the end. And just to see, the joy and the excitement that people have for it, we're very excited to unveil that tomorrow. So it'll hit new shelves tomorrow morning, so be sure to pick up a copy. And we'll have coverage of all of your local football teams in that product. And we got some week 0 action this week. I got the schedule in front of me, so I'll kind of run through the coverage schedule for this week. Washington at Monessen, 7 p.m. Adam Brewer and Jen Cottalupi will have coverage there. Jeremy Salute and Mike Darnay will have coverage of the Ringgold Elizabeth Forward game. Liam Bellin and Bob Smith will be at Yock South Allegheny. I will be joined by Jeff Helsel at California for their matchup against the Fraser Commodores. We'll also have coverage of the Thomas Jefferson matchup at Franklin Regional from our friends over at the Tribune Review. So full coverage there on Friday night for some week 0 action, and excited to get things going. Should be a very exciting football season. And Friday nights are going to be
busy. We're
be
gonna
busy
be
again.
Busy again. I mean, it's been nice because, as you know, we get to take – I don't say we take this week off because we're working, obviously, but, we have all our soccer previews we're running.
We still got a lot more to get in there.
We're, we have prearranged items that we could kind of just, exhale, take a breath. We still produce the paper, obviously. So, but this is kind of like our relaxing,
relaxing time.
Leading into the start of the football season on Friday. So
you call this a relaxing time. Yesterday at 4 o'clock, we were sending the tab out, and we literally exhaled because of how just stress relieving that feeling was. But this is a relaxing time.
I mean, it's our most relaxing time.
This is the most relaxing.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But so I think we're starting off on the right foot as always. So I'm excited.
But we do have boys and girls soccer coming up. We'll kind of touch on that here shortly, just real quick. But want to mention in today's MVI Monessen girls soccer preview, California boys soccer preview, and then tomorrow's MVI we'll have a preview of the Charleroi boys soccer team and the Sarah Catholic girls soccer team. But we'll kind of run through just maybe some storylines for boys and girls soccer real quickly. But the Charleroi boys obviously had a ton of success last year, going to the Whipple Championship game, playing in the state playoffs, having a pretty nice stay in the state playoffs, getting a state playoff win. Do we think the Charleroi boys can kind of replicate what they did last year?
I think they can. I just saw the Trib came out there with their rankings, and they got Charleroi number 1.
There you go.
Class
I mean,
boys.
get some respect after the season.
It's
you had last year.
Charleroi and then 4 private schools right behind them. So, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see. I talked to Coach DeColley. I don't want to talk too much about them because their preview is going to run tomorrow. Coach, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to say about that. Let's don't tinker too much. Don't overthink it. I think I think Charleroi should be probably one of the best soccer teams here in the Valley. Obviously, Bell Vernon boys their first year of 2A. They're out to reclaim that section that they won last year. I think the one storyline for me is let's look at the Bell Vernon girls. They're going to look, I talked to, our buddy Ed Rosenstiel, who's now the head coach at Ringgold, You know, I think he put it best. The Bell Vernon girls are going to look a lot different this year.
Yeah.
You know, they've always had, and I'm not, not saying Katara Rhodes is not a great player. She's a very good player. And they have a couple good players there. They got some young talent, but, you had so many years with, started with, Jillian Butchkai and Izzy Larita, and then you had Farrah Reeder, and then you had Aden Schofer there. I don't know him personally, but there's no really big name that there was. You had those big goal scorers. Who's going to step into that role for them this year? Will it be Rhodes? Will she be in the midfield? It's going to be real interesting. I know we ran the preview. We ran Bell Vernon Girls preview. Yeah,
on Monday.
On Monday. And, they're going to look a lot different. So I'm really interested to see. But I know they got 37 girls on the roster, I think. So, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do this year. And
they have a lot of young talent on that team, too.
They're going to get to see the
Cougars.
The Saska. They're going to get to see the Cougars, who
Yeah.
I'm, really high on this year. I mean, if, it seems like they filled their missing piece that they needed. And, I'm going to be putting that preview together probably within the next couple days. So, we'll get there locked down. I know our buddy Chad needs to hurry up and get it up on the wall real quick in Bella's room. But
Chad actually already planned the state championship parade, I was told.
Yeah. So, but I'm real excited to see what Charleroi girls are going to do. I think they were always missing that one piece. You got Bella Karate, you got Boots, you got, Taylor Ramsdale's there, Addie Conrad in goal. So I'm really excited to see if they can finally put it together. It seems like we've been waiting for them to put it together for like the last 2-3 years. Don't sleep on the Monessen girls. That Monessen California co-op has paid off. It's really funny because it seems to me like the Monessen girls are mostly California players and the California boys are mostly Monessen players.
Yeah.
So it's real. The dynamic there is like really good. So, it's going to be fun soccer season too. I mean, I think TJ girls are loaded up. I think they're going to be really good.
I think that's my top
Watch out for the Ringgold girls too, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
They lost a lot, but they still returned some talent.
They had some young
amount of
talent that, Coach Rosenstill's really excited about because he coached them obviously last year in JV, so he's really excited about them. They're going to be pretty good too. EF's going to be loaded. New coach.
That's what I was going to say. That's probably my top storyline is the EF TJ battles.
Yeah.
I think that's what that section is going to come down to.
I know I got when Alyssa hopped on a stream this summer, she was very excited about doing those games. And I when I started doing the schedule for this fall, I went through, I'm like, which games do I know? And those were 2 games we had to find for the schedule because there are going to be some battles.
I mean, EF has so much talent coming back. I'm actually going down to talk to both EF coaches later today with Satiri Sarakis taking over, the former Penn Trafford boys coach, taking over at EF on the girls' side. There's just everybody's pretty much coming back. I mean, you still have Abby Beinlich, you still have Mia Valerio. Obviously the back line with Alyssa Terza, Chloe Zombeck. It's a really talented group that still returns after a really solid season last year.
But as Jeremy said about not sleeping on Ringgold, that's a Ringgold team that even though they've lost players, they went into EF last year. And I believe
gave them the game.
I
think it was a 1-0 game.
1-0, and they were beating TJ with 6 minutes left in
that
the
was
game.
that was the overtime game.
Yep.
You lose Whaley, Wilson, and company, but you have the Santina sisters back, and
realistically, I think they're the third place team in that set. They could very much be the third place team in that set.
I think it could go either way, flip of a coin.
Or they could potentially, spoil one of those games from those top 2 teams and maybe be in the mix for a higher seed in the playoffs. So
I've been waiting about 2-3 days to talk to Coach Hansen. Of course, he's calling in the middle of the podcast.
Oh, there you go.
That's how that works, right, guys?
Hey, at least you got in touch with them. Casey does bring up a good point that the Bell Vernon Charleroi matchup is actually Jake's versus Armando's.
There's no comparison.
There's no comparison.
No
yeah,
comparison.
I agree,
Jake,
but
it's not. It's Jake's North Bell Vernon. It ain't Armando, Charleroi, Armando's, Manessa. No, it's Jake's North Bell Vernon, one, and then everybody else.
I still need to. I need to actually try Jake's of Ross Draver just to put my vote into this.
You don't.
I mean, Jake's of North Bell Vernon obviously has a very special place in my heart, considering I used to live across the street pretty much.
100th episode, pizza review.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. You say pizza review to me.
Do we think we could get them to donate a large pizza for our 100th episode?
I don't know.
I mean, it's still half a year away. It's 20 episodes away. So it's a pace we're going. Probably by 2025 we might get it.
I mean, we'll go strong at least for this season and the next season. And then we'll get to fall or spring again, and 4 o'clock games make life miserable for trying to get this to work.
It might be something we can do. We always have a lot of ideas here on the podcast.
But here's the thing. We don't have to do that live. We can go place to place, film.
Yeah.
I'm sure we get Chad to come along with us. I'm sure he'll hop in the comments, and we'll have a good time.
One storyline, too, that I wanted to mention before we kind of move on and talk briefly about some volleyball, and then we'll kind of close things out here. But very interested in seeing how the Bell Vernon area boys soccer team kind of goes and builds off of what they were able to do last year. Year before, lost a lot of seniors. I think last year was, the expectation was, okay, we're going to see what we can do here with a pretty inexperienced group, a group that doesn't have a lot of varsity time. And all they did was win the section title and advance to the playoffs. Of course, a first-round loss to West Mifflin, but this is a team that, loses guys like Dylan Rathway and Nathaniel Keuchel, Dylan Timko, Nick Rita, Stacy Chambers, a lot of seniors that are gone, but they still got some talent. Trevor Kovac scored 27 goals last year. Bryce Burkhart was a sophomore who was kind of, he played a little bit of JV as a goalkeeper his freshman year, but, really, I think, kind of exceeded expectations as a keeper, an all-section keeper there. You have Brandon and Mason Yashenko back. You have some talented young players on the back line. So I'm interested in seeing if this is a team that can, once again compete for a section title. I think that, can't really doubt them when they were able to kind of do something that a lot of people thought was impossible last year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right there again. I mean, obviously they're going to go as Trevor Kovac goes. And if they can avoid injuries to some of their key players, I think they'll be right there again.
And had a preview of their upcoming season in Tuesday's paper. So if you're an online subscriber and want to take a look at that, feel free to go look at Tuesday's edition. But we'll kind of switch things up and go a little bit into volleyball talk. And obviously we have the defending WPIAL champions back here in the Mon Valley from the Fraser Commodores. They lose some seniors. Obviously, the big notable loss is Jensen Hartman. But from what you guys are Fraser guys, I heard earlier. Breaking news to me. But this is a Commodores team that could very well repeat as WPIAL champions and maybe make a state playoff run.
They, obviously, the communication channels are always open with Coach Hartman. Especially now that she's the AD over there. But she was very pleased with their performance yesterday in their scrimmage against Connellsville. And, dare I say they could be better than they were last year. Obviously, you don't replace a Jensen Hartman or, Maria Felsher was key during their run as a defensive specialist. Braylon Salisbury in the middle. But I'll tell you what. Watching them practice, I'm going to actually check them out tomorrow. I'm going to go watch their scrimmage against Laurel Highlands. Sorry for the Star Wars theme there. But I think they're going to be better. I really do. I think you have to say they're the favorites in Class A. And, all last season, they were always ranked. They were ranked second, third all season long. Sarah Catholic was one. Somebody else popped in at two every once in a while. But, Fraser ran the table until they were in the state playoffs, when they ran into a Homer Center team that was all 6 foot.
Yeah.
But, they're going to be really good. It's not going to be easy because their section's really tough. There's that Carmichael's, Mapletown, I think they got non-section. I think Charleroi is going to be really good this year. They got a lot coming back. I mean, they're very similar teams, especially Fraser and Charleroi, where it's the multi-sport athletes that are carrying these teams. So, but I think Charleroi is going to jump in as a pretty good squad. California's got a lot coming back. They're tough. Volleyball is going to be really exciting to watch, much to the chagrin of some other people in the Mon Valley. But I think volleyball is going to be really fun to watch this year.
Bell Vernon should, I think, be pretty good too, in taking another step, forward. Obviously, they have their eyes on making it to the playoffs. So that's a team that's definitely to watch. Sarah Catholic and South Allegheny are always very good. Adam Brewer is actually going to put together some previews for next week on those two teams. So. Ton of previews that we still have in terms of soccer and volleyball that we'll be running into next week. But, a lot of talent on the volleyball court. I'm now a volleyball extraordinaire. I will, likely be at your volleyball games and, just bless you with my presence and my volleyball knowledge. It should be very exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
With all that talent, all those really good teams, one team they're going to struggle this year, I think. It's going to be a team that was great last year in TJ. You lose so much. Delaney Concannon, we talked about how good Jensen was for Fraser. Delaney was just as good and as important for that TJ team. Delaney going up to IUP to play. And, they lost a ton more.
They were the last team standing in the state playoffs last year in terms of Valley teams. Yeah,
the Twins, they both went on to play at the next level. that is a lot of talent to replace on that Thomas Jefferson roster. And I think that's a team that was so talented last year. And, I forget who it was going into basketball season. I think Berberich was like, hey, we were the public school champions last year. Right. We were the last public school remaining. But, they lost so much coming into this year. And I wonder if it kind of opens the door up for maybe a team like an Elizabeth Forward this year who really didn't lose a ton on that volleyball roster. Do they find a way to make a run and take over Thomas Jefferson? I think those are some things to look at.
That section's going to be exciting. Ringgold has a lot coming back as well. Ringgold's very, real talented team. They're going to be fun to watch this year. I think, but that section you mentioned, that Ringgold, Bell Vernon, TJ, EF, could those be the four teams? I know Albert Gallatin was pretty good last year. Laurel Highlands is always pretty decent. They're scrimmaging at Fraser tomorrow. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I want to touch on two other things before we get in to our individual segment, but want to give a shout out to two former Alderson Brodus athletes in the Valley who found new homes. Daquan Chatfield from Sarah Catholic, a freshman recently committed to Edinburgh, and Breeser Sevick, a former WPIAL champion at Elizabeth Forward for the softball team. She's now heading to play for the California Vulcans. She'll join her former EF teammates and Kaylee Larsenes and Jordan Paneri up there playing for the Vulcans. So congratulations to those two. I know just a crazy situation over at Alderson Brodus. Ethan Cottalupi from Charleroi obviously went through it as well. He's going to Cal too. So a tough situation for those student athletes, but happy to see that Chatfield and Sir Sevick were able to find new homes amongst it all. Also wanted to kind of get into briefly the Cal Vulcan football team. Should be a little bit different. They're going into the season without their 4-year starter, Noah Mitchell, under center. Right now a battle between Davis Black and Wyatt Hurt for that starting quarterback position. A talented running back core that includes Bobby Boyd from McKeesport. Some talented wide receivers, even though they lost, their top two wide receivers from a year ago, still talent on the defensive side. Two guys leading the way on special teams from the Valley, and Anthony Bitko and Clayton Rosensteel. So should be interesting to see what the Vulcans can do this season. Be a little different.
They're going to find out real soon, opening up with Kutztown and Shepherd at home. So.
Yeah, they'll open up. That is actually another preview story that is in our tab tomorrow morning. So if you want to know more about the California Vulcans in the upcoming season in the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, be sure to check that out. But we'll go into our individual segment. And Jeremy, any grievances you want to hear here? Just let it roll.
We need to get in on the grievances. Number one, Kids are kids. We know that, right? Listen, if you have not even touched a ball, you have to beware of your so-called class rankings. I mean, obviously, we have guys in the Valley like Quentin Martin who, there was a lot of hype, but once he started doing things, he started climbing the ladder. If you haven't done nothing yet, just stop it, as Casey would say. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. A bunch of fanboys out there putting out their rankings and stuff for people that have not even touched the varsity field yet is just absolutely ridiculous. That's all I got to say about that.
That's it?
That's it.
That's reasonable.
Okay, I thought there was more. I was ready for there to be more.
Profanity-laced is the next step, and I can't stop
Yeah, let's
that.
hold off on that.
Anything grinding the gears today, Jose?
No, I've decided to retire the segment.
Wait, I got one more thing. Sorry. I know I always do that. But
Yep.
Can we stop with the El Ducho sunglasses, too? The ones that don't look like sunglasses.
Like the Pit Vipers?
Yes. Stop it. Just stop. Okay, I'm done.
All right, Jose.
Yeah, no,
So
yeah.
retiring.
Retired. Yeah, it's done. It's over with. I'm sure I'll get angry about something.
You'll just hop into
I'll
the
just hop. I'll
grievances?
just hop onto the grievances. Yeah, I've decided to retire my segment, the OG segment here on the Valley Sports Guys podcast. I'm a happier person now. Yeah, we're done until the start of the fall sports season when somebody angers me. But we'll see where we go.
Well,
from there.
that's in about 2 days. So
yeah,
we're getting there.
So it might
won't
be
be
retired
long.
for the week. We'll see how it all goes. But yeah,
Quick shout out to my now 6th grade Little Leopards basketball team.
okay.
The quest starts next week
The quest.
with new assistant coaches on staff, Chad Corrado and Kenzie Saliga.
Oh,
We're going to be rolling stuff down in the Bronson house in the fall here.
Nice.
So just giving a shout out about that. That's all.
cool. Alex, you want to take a look at what the MVI Live schedule looks like for at least this week? I know we got some Friday night football.
We'll start Friday night, and obviously I can go into Monday, and then we're still tinkering a few things here and there. But Friday night we'll be at that gorgeous Gladiator Stadium for Yawk in South Allegheny. We'll have, of course, our halftime interview. Just got confirmation. Going to go talk to Cam Epps later this afternoon, so make sure you tune in at halftime for that. Very excited for that with Cam Epps. And Monday we'll move into that Commodore Cougar volleyball matchup at Commodore High School. As we'll go back to what's been a pretty good matchup the last couple seasons between Fraser and Charlotte. We're very excited to see how those two teams look in their opening game of the season. Then, of course, we'll get some more soccer throughout the week and volleyball back into another Friday Night Lights here on MVI Live. So very excited for what's upcoming here this season.
Yeah, full slate of games throughout the fall on MVI Live. Also want to thank our sponsors for the upcoming football season, Planet Roof, E-Paints, and Highway Appliance for their support in just making everything work here on MVI Live and with the MVI Sports Department. But as we close things out, I'd like to remind all our loyal viewers and listeners to subscribe to the VSG podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Follow us on social media. Be sure to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. And if you're interested in advertising with us, it is available here on the Valley Sports Guys podcast. So be sure to contact Alex Lyons here at alyons@yourmvi.com for more information. Thank you again to everyone here at his place here in Monessen for allowing us to spout our nonsense as usual. Good to be back with you guys. I'm sure that as the fall goes on, we'll have some more guests and some more people here at the table. But any closing thoughts? Anything you guys want to send to the people here?
Nope. I'm good.
Thank you all for tuning in, and best of luck to all of our local teams as we run through the fall season. For Jeremy Salou, for Alex Lyons, I'm Jose Negron. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.